Welcome back to the Backslider Diaries. We're three ex Pentecostal preachers' kids talking about what we went through and how the hell we're getting through it.
Today we're going to talk about music. If you grew up in the Pentecostal or evangelical world, or even just any good church in the South, you know and understand from a visceral level that music plays a very, very, very specific role in church. And in fact, for many of us who've deconstructed and left the faith, one of the things that we find most difficult to leave behind is the feelings connected to the music. And for many of us, that's even led us to question, are the feelings the real thing, and kind of even have some conflict over that. And where do we leave music? Do we take it with us? Do we leave it in the past? Where do we go from there?
We talked about it before, and like I mentioned, music was one of my escapes. And that's one of the things I did miss because, for various reasons, I didn't play the drums, which is what I loved to do after I left for a long time until I met some really good friends of mine. And that's something I wish I would have done.
Well, I think you miss it, right? You miss the drums. Jay misses singing. I miss singing.
It's part of your identity, I think, is the issue too, right?
Well, and you almost do have a camaraderie with the people you're playing
Mm.
with. You have that unspoken communication, and you just get that feeling, like I've mentioned before, that in the past, when you were in church, you'd say, God, the anointing of God came over you or whatever. But no, it's the magic of music. Just put on any song. I was driving down the road, and I admit it, I was listening to Barry Manilow.
You
I was
love Barry
thinking,
Manilow,
yeah,
don't even
well,
lie.
Mom had Barry Manilow on an 8 track,
8 track.
showing my age there. But this one song in particular, I write the song. I am music. I write the song. That song just gets to me, man. And just like music does, it's really cool how that song's about music, and it kind of does what we're talking about here. It gives you that feeling. So it's just a human thing. I sent you guys a podcast the other day. That doctor talking about music and not synchronicity. That's a police song.
Mm.
Synchrony, I believe. How when humans start clapping together or do anything in unison like that, jumping up and down, dancing together, it releases endorphins. How it can even, make you feel like you've been healed. It can give you, like we've talked about before, how it can make pain go away. And that all is used in religions around the world, even in voodoo. They do that. So
Even in
it's pretty
battle.
interesting. Yeah.
If you look back towards, like, Roman, I don't know military history, but old types of warfare.
The
Mhm. The drummer boy, yeah, all of that, it all goes back to.
Even marching in unison does that too. It
You're
builds that
right.
camaraderie.
Yeah, you're right, it does, and, it's really interesting when you do leave the faith. I know for me, talking about it being identity, there's a fingerprint of that type of music, I think, and especially, like I said, especially coming from that tradition in the South, and you can hear it and you can recognize it in other singers. Like, I was listening to, I think it was Rascal Flatts on the radio, and you can hear the church roots,
Mhm.
and I know they have church roots because 2 of them used to belong to a different band, East to West, the cousins, and I actually used to tour with them on a tour bus in Tennessee and got to know them pretty well doing some things around there. So I know the roots are there, but sometimes when you listen, you can hear it, right? Aretha Franklin is another person. You listen to her and you hear Whitney Houston. Same thing. Well, turns out Whitney Houston's mother, Sissy, was a background singer for BB and CC Winans, the Winans families, for years. She comes from that root, and it's interesting because when you step away from that, it feels very isolated in a way, because it feels like part of a culture that you're letting go of, that to go back into and to listen to that music again, or for me to sing that music again, which I get such endorphin rushes and good things, and you know rhythm and all of the great parts of music. But to go back and revisit that, it's associated with church, and it's associated with some of the trauma that comes from that. So when you step away from it, it is, in my opinion, a real loss of a feeling of identity. What do you
So I know
think?
for T, this is a bit different, but Jay, how long do you think you stuck around in church circles because of your music involvement and because of your love of music? Like, if you
Long
took that,
time.
if you teased that apart, like, where would you have been? Would you have stayed?
I No, I wouldn't. If I would have stayed, it would have been just strictly kind of as a function of my marriage at the time, and because I didn't necessarily it would have been an unsafe decision for me at that time to go against my husband's desire to be in the church, but would I have been vested in it? No, because I was already struggling for so long. And even, in my early adulthood and in my teenage years, there were so many times I went strictly for the musical expression and being involved in that and being part of it. No, the music kept me in, like, that's the whole reason I went to a Christian college. I didn't really want to go to a Christian college, but I got a scholarship for singing and I didn't have any other way to pay for it. So that's where I wound up, going and doing a couple of years of school. No, absolutely, the music was the draw. What about you?
I think yes. I mean, I stuck around because of the connection that I had, but also I loved the discipline, the weekly practice and
Mhm.
choir music and praise team, and even there was a period where I couldn't sing because I had thyroid surgery. I like ran the lights, which I enjoyed because guitar solo, turn up the light on the guitar. Like I got to do all that little fun stuff. So I always had to do something. I wanted to be part of it.
You know what? I just had this weird thought, and this might be nuts, but I was just thinking, when we grew up so cloistered the way we did, so many of us didn't really have an opportunity to explore the arts outside of
Mhm.
church. We didn't have art class, we didn't have choir, we didn't have orchestra or whatever, and we certainly didn't have theater, and we really weren't allowed to do that unless we were acting in the Easter pageant or the Christmas show.
Mhm.
And so in a way, I wonder if, like, church music was our theater kids. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
In
I
a
can see
weird
that.
way, like that if you haven't experienced it, I guess that would be an allegory. It's like such a place of expression and artistic union with other people who are in the same moment and kind of that bond. I don't know.
I think if you're a guy, from what you were just talking about there, the arts, acting, anything like that, if you're a guy and you were into that, you'd probably be considered gay or effeminate,
In
to
that
like that
culture.
sort of in that culture.
Yeah.
But going back to what you were saying about the music and how much you enjoyed it and everything. Now, I did enjoy what I did in the music, but the lyrics, the praise and worship aspect of it, I have real problems with those words. I always have. I don't think God deserves to be worshipped. Number one, and I just can't see myself like the idea of heaven and worshiping something that has tortured all a bunch of my friends and family for eternity. I'm not don't want to worship that. Anyway, I'll get off my soapbox there. No, I knew that there was other music out there in the world, quote unquote, the world. And I listened to it in my car all the time. Chicago, Hank Williams Jr., Guns N' Roses, rap music. I listened to everything. I had Whitney Houston, Mariah Carey. Yeah, look at our playlist.
But most of those were added by me.
For those of you who don't know, we have made a Black Backslider Diaries playlist on Spotify. Feel free to follow and join us there. We'd love to hear from you and interact with you. But yeah, there how would you describe our playlist? What did what what are the
Um,
songs? Did you pick just songs you like, or were they from a special time in your life, or songs
Very
that helped you
eclectic,
deconstruct?
and I've drunkenly added songs when I just like them. Or I think they hit a certain chord. Yeah, at first I thought we'd just put songs maybe related to deconstruction or whatever, but then I'm like, well, no, here's some songs that you can listen to that when I listen to them anyway, when I'm driving down the road and nobody's around, I'm singing at the top of my lungs. They give you the feels, man. I don't know how else to put it. And I've got ADD, so sometimes I'll get stuck on one song and just listen to it over and over. There's a Jack White song, Reverend something something, I don't know. But I've been listening to that song just over and over on repeat. Drives my wife nuts when I do that. No,
I
but
do that
back to
too.
what I was saying. You guys were really into that, and what I got out of it at church, at least, is there were some songs that I liked, and I wanted to play fast. I didn't want to, I didn't want to do "How Great Thou Art." I'm like, come on, let's just go, come on, and so I liked that part of it. Um, and like the camaraderie and all that, and playing with your family was really cool. But when you guys would get around the piano and sing, or
Like at home, you mean?
yeah, yeah,
Family
or
gatherings and
yeah,
things.
or it was the altar call or something like that. It just gave me the heebie-jeebies. It's just like this. I guess like when you feel when something just gives you like it just doesn't feel right. It just didn't feel right to me, and I just wanted to leave. I just wanted to get out of there. I don't know. I had a really
Yeah.
weird relationship with church because I didn't believe the flood. I didn't believe the earth was 6,000 years old. I didn't
Did
believe
you
Adam and
ever
Eve.
believe the flood or
Well,
stuff like that? Well,
I'm
like when
sure
we
I
were
did when I
kids?
was a little kid, but and I don't know what changed it. I know that I've listened to a bunch of other I listen to way too many apologetic podcasts and stuff, and
Oh, they're
they talk
good.
about how now dinosaurs lived with people, because they're only 6,000 years old. And I remember now, correct me if I'm
Mm.
wrong, but I believe our parents' theory on that, their interpretation of the Bible, which, oh my God, I hope you get the right interpreter to give you the
I
right
know.
Bible facts so you don't go to hell.
Good luck. Good
But
luck with eternity there.
no, if I remember right, their interpretation was the Earth was as old as scientists say it is, and that the dinosaurs were the devil's attempt at creation, and
Oh,
they were
that's so
abominations to
interesting.
God.
I do that. I,
My
I remember that coming from our youth leader there at the time.
That's in no, I missed that one. My take on it growing up, which is so funny, we have the
We
same
grew up in the
parents
same
too.
fucking
I
house.
know. I just remember, like, talking to mom about it more so when I was in high school, and because you know me, little Miss Instigator, I've always got to, pull the thread on the sweater. "But why? But why? But why do you think that?" So, I was asking her about something to do with one of my classes, and I was at a Christian school at the time, and she firmly expressed the idea of young earth creationism. And I was like, "Well, then how do you explain, like, changes from here to there or time measurements?" And she said, "Well, the Bible said," and this was the loophole, "the Bible says that in heaven, one day can be as 1,000 years." So
Oh yeah, I
even though
remember that. I
you remember
remember that.
that?
You don't know. They said a day, but that's just a placeholder for God. You
Right.
don't know if that means,
It's just a
yeah.
word, but all the other words you better take very seriously.
Except when they condone slavery and genocide and rape, that don't take that seriously because
Unless it works in
that's
your
the all
favor.
benevolent, all loving God was the one who was condoning that and doing that. But yeah, don't
Right.
pay attention to that,
Also, that whole foreskin thing is debatable, but
right?
yeah. No, I mean, it's really random,
If I
but
was the first one, I would have been debating it too.
let's
What's the
talk about
story
this.
in the Bible? Well, let's get back to music. We could talk foreskin all day.
It'll be 5 skin by the time we finish.
God,
Oh my God. God needs your foreskin and your money now.
there needs to be a
Donate
song about
today. It is
foreskin, man.
Patreon.
Seriously, what? The one time women got the good side of something in history of the Bible.
Gosh.
Obviously, you were 12 when you deconstructed.
Yeah, no, like he was a
I mean,
child.
everything else happens at 12, right? So you
Yeah,
deconstructed at 12. So
yeah,
you enjoyed playing drums, but at some point you did have trouble with the lyrics. Imagine if you weren't a drummer. Imagine if you were singing.
yeah.
Do you
Yeah.
think you could have
Yeah.
done the same thing? Even like sit there and
I
sing the very
I
lyrics that
don't
you're questioning?
I really don't think I could have because that's just not the kind of person I am. I can't fake it really,
No, I agree.
And when you're singing, you have to feel it, man. It's not
Mhm.
like you can just get
Oh,
up there
no.
and
I could sing the
you
phone
know.
book if the mood was right and the rhythm was good. No,
Heard
I
people
mean,
really get into Happy Birthday for sure.
right? Like, I could have a whole Fergie moment with that. No, but
No, T is very much a, "Hey, guys, the emperor has no clothes" kind of person.
right, right.
Absolutely.
No, he
I'm
is for
like,
sure.
"I'm ready to conform, no one notice." Yes, it's a beautiful clothing he has on.
No, and I wanna look around and take a poll and determine, is it just my perception or is it reality that the emperor has on no cl
Well, I'm like also the lack of self confidence. Sometimes I'm like looking around going, the emperor has no clothes, but I'm not going to say anything because nobody else has said anything yet. I'm just going to
Right.
keep this to myself.
But okay, but hold on, let's put a bookmark right there because it's really hard for me to kind of like, did I believe? Here's where I was with it. I believed despite my doubts and despite reason really flagging some hot ones there and begging the question on some things. I believed despite those things because of the way I felt when engaged in the music, you know? And
Right.
I'd
And
be
then you
like,
get out into the world and go to a concert or, an
well, I
event
didn't go
and
to a
you have the
concert
same
until I was
feels.
a full adult. But here's the thing, if you can stay in a place of non-exposure to other things while your brain is forming, you don't have any experiences to measure things up against. It's kind of like marrying your high school sweetheart, which nothing wrong with that, by the way. It can be a great thing. But if that's the only kiss you've ever kissed, that's fine and great, but you don't necessarily have any other framework of reference. If that's the only relationship you've ever had, you have no idea if you're really being treated well to some extent. I mean, there's holes in that argument, but you get the point.
And that's why they want to keep you in this little bubble,
Yes.
and send you to Christian school
And
and
not
send you
let
to
you listen to
Christian
other
college.
music.
Don't listen to other music. Don't have friends outside the church. And it's
Right.
just to indoctrinate you into this.
Because when you are standing there, and I mean, seriously, no joke, for me, and you guys know, I always say music is my first language. Our mother played the organ, Hammond B3 with a Leslie since the moment I was sparked onto this earth. And like, I literally grew for 9 months with her playing the organ and
You were
singing.
conceived on that organ.
I practically was. I mean, hell, we have pictures. I was a week old and I'm laying on the organ bench while my mother's playing the organ, right? So like it was a definitely a big part of my life. And just hearing that rhythm, and there's a very specific, like I said, there's a very specific fingerprint to the sound of church. And when you hear especially a Hammond B3 with a Leslie, it's got a certain sound. And so I don't know if it's being sort of bathed in that from the beginning or just who I am, but music is absolutely my lifeblood in every single way.
So the adjustment of going to a free concert every week. How many concerts do you go to now? Right?
I'm going to one this
They're crazy
weekend.
expensive, and I'm going
Yeah.
to the weekend as well, so I'm excited about that.
God, I wish I was doing that.
But it's costly. Like I go to
Right.
one concert every couple of years, maybe.
Dude, no.
I
No.
don't I don't
My
get to go
wife
that
and I
much.
went to we decided a couple of years ago we weren't going to go anywhere on vacation, so it was going to be our summer of concerts. There were a ton of shows around. We saw the Toadies, Reverend Horton Heat, Dinosaur Jr., Red Fang. If you don't know who Red Fang is, give them a listen if you like some metal. The Head and the Heart, Spoon, we Primus, The Cure, we Modest Mouse, the Pixies. My daughter's first concert ever, The Cure. But we just decided that's what we love to do. We love to go to live events.
Mhm.
We saw the 1975.
Nice.
So and it gives us like these great memories. And we were at the Head and the Hearts at Red Rocks, and I had tears streaming down my face. It was like a religious experience. I mean, the power of music. Go watch a scary movie or watch Jaws without the music on. It just isn't the same.
It's not scary.
No, it's not, Lance, what you were saying. It's not only is it a free concert, but when you're on stage and you're like especially when you're working with good musicians and good singers and like you're in the pocket, and you've got that musician vibe going and you're hearing where the bass breaks down into a little, riff off of another song and you all kind of look at each other because you know what he's doing and then you hit the moment of the perfect harmony and then you vamp or it goes to the key change and it lifts.
Always a key
There's
change.
right, always the key change, especially right after the bridge heading into the next chorus. And there's nothing like it. There's just nothing like that. It's euphoric. And especially for me, the last few years, I was in a really rough marriage, and that was my catharsis. That was the one place I was absolutely safe to let all my emotions go. And I did feel things in that, and I did feel uplifted after that. But in hindsight, I feel that way still with other things.
I
So
heard
it was
too on the
interesting.
podcast that they did a study, and one of the fastest ways to get people to bond is to have them in a choir,
Yeah.
as opposed to like playing games together, having a knitting circle, doing different. Man, I sounded old.
Well, it worked on Sister Act, right? It worked
It
on
worked
Right.
that.
out, but
No, but
every
that
movement has an anthem, right?
and that just that whole scene together thing. And humans, we have a thing that animals don't have. We can work together. Two of us can work together towards a third thing. Like, so just for example, if I point my finger at something, you're going to look to where I'm pointing, right? If I do that to my dog, they'll look at my finger.
Mm.
They don't get that there's a third thing that we're both going to focus on. And we as humans can do that, and we can focus on that other thing, which is music. And animals don't hear the music either, the beat, the boom, boom, boom. And what it happens in our brain is processing all this information and it's anticipating that next. So sometimes you're listening to a song and they change the beat on you real quick, or they go to a drop beat or whatever, and you're like, whoa, and you're like, clap, whoa, what am I clapping here? Your brain is thinking ahead and processing all that. So your brain, in the combination with the other people around working towards a certain goal, just that makes you a community. That releases endorphins, all this stuff that evolution has done to our bodies to make us be able to cohabitate together. It's pretty cool when you look into it. And I'm
It
probably
is
not
cool.
explaining it right at all.
What
No, it
But
makes
just occurred
sense.
to me though, as you're talking about the unification of music, like how it brings unity. My husband and I talk about how music is the great segregator of churches.
mhm,
Music, that style of music, the culture really drives what keeps a lot of black churches black churches. It drives what keeps a lot of white churches white churches. And so every Sunday
That's so
morning,
true.
the music and how that's played out in our culture based on our race basically drives the attendance at the different churches. It's hard to find a church that is diverse in its music.
And that's so interesting too, because for us, our mother was very active in singing in Black music spaces. And, she sang
the
and
Mighty Clouds
recorded.
of Joy.
Well, she sang and recorded with Andre Crouch. And, she's been with the Winans and she's been with Yolanda Adams and, you know, uh, in a lot of those circles. And it's very interesting because I would say, like, for me, when I think of music growing up in the Pentecostal church in the South, I think like Mickey Mangan and, the Mississippi Mass Choir and the Pentecostals of Alexandria kind of music, more like that. And it's really funny because my friend who grew up very religious in the South, she grew up Southern Baptist in Georgia. Like her memories of church music is like barbershop quartet of Shall We Gather by the River, and it's really different to kind of get that flavor of it too. Like when you think church music from our childhood, church music, do you think more hymns? Do you think more like choral choruses?
It would depend on what portion of the service it was, also what kind of sermon it was. When you're first coming in to the church, they're playing the upbeat music, kind of like going into a basketball game. Out, not, 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 not. Everybody's partying. We're getting ready to have church, and then depending upon what was happening, you knew it was the end of the service when Mom started playing the organ. Like her and dad had this connection. I don't know. He'd probably give her the look or something, and she'd head up to the organ. And if it was an upbeat sermon, then it would be upbeat music. And if it wasn't, then it would be really mellow. And
Altar
I
call.
would be like, well, I'm not going to be doing anything for a minute. And then once the altar call happened, people started coming up there and they started at Lance. I forgot about this. They started shouting, not yelling. They're just dancing like crazy people all over the place. But yeah, and then the music would like get people amped. I mean, I remember you would leave church and I would be covered in sweat and people down there they'd been spitting and yelling in each other's faces and everybody and you had a high off that. You're ready to go eat some pizza, ready to go out.
Cruise the strip.
Yeah, right, right.
No,
But it
but
was just crazy because you would think me being up on stage, I guess, whatever, playing the drums, anointed by God because I'm up there jamming, and then when I leave, I'm like ready to go smoke a joint and meet my friends. And so, how's the Holy Spirit like? I lost it. Like I backslid from the church door to my truck door.
that's funny. Do you remember, T, when we were kids and dad had been
Really?
preaching? Me neither. Yay, trauma. When dad would be preaching like way too long and it would just keep going on, or we'd have guest preachers there that just would go on and on, and we'd be like, Mom, go to the organ. Mom, go play the
Yeah.
organ. Do you remember
Please.
doing that?
Yeah.
I
Please,
used to
mom.
write her notes and
Mhm.
I'd suggest songs. I'm like, maybe if I get her real excited about the song choice, she'll go up and start playing, it'll be over.
That's funny.
But Lance, when you think of like our childhood, teenage church music, because your church you grew up in, was very Southern gospel,
Yep.
wouldn't you
Yeah.
say?
Very country.
Yeah, beautiful
Although I
singers
didn't know
though.
it at the time. Powerful singers. But yes, everything had a very southern country gospel feel. I mean, to the point that that was their show
Right.
on the network and everything. And then more gospel when I joined your church, and then from there, I went white Pentecostal.
Mhm.
Choir music actually is that's the first choir that I think I started singing in, is right after I left church with you guys. So it was choir music for quite a while, actually, when I think about church music. And even then, I was curious about this, about the shift of music, because everything was kind of praise, very kind of performance oriented. And then things shifted to like all the worship songs, the love songs to Jesus.
Mhm.
And then we kind of got into that.
Making
Jesus
And
love
is
to
my
I enjoyed
Jesus.
boyfriend.
I enjoyed it because of all the emotion and, I love all that. So, very cathartic. I miss
Mhm.
that piece of it. And then somehow I kind of and then I started deconstructing, and all of that didn't make as much sense, and trying to sing songs that I was questioning. I was just doing all the gymnastics in my head to try to replace things, right? So, okay, if I'm saying God this, I'm really thinking about the universe.
Right.
And anything with devil, of course, is just metaphor anyway. But that was, to me, that overlap was harder for me to enjoy, where I started to just question a lot of lyrics and couldn't enjoy certain songs. I didn't like that
Well,
part.
there has been a huge shift in the music. I think when we were growing up, it was still kind of common to have a hymnal or a songbook. I can still remember page 311 is "I'll Fly Away."
It's got grassroots, yeah.
Right. No, and I still remember, I think it's page 88 was Church Triumphant. Like, why do I know this? I don't
God,
need this
please don't put
anymore.
these song earwigs in my head. I
I'm
swear to God,
sorry.
I was mowing the yard the other day, and I'm not going to try to remember the song I was singing, but it was some freaking church song. I'm walking around mowing the yard singing in my head, and I'm like, okay, the only way to get through this is just to sing the whole fucking song.
The other day that happened to me with When We All Get to Heaven. And I mean, I was down in
Mhm.
the
What
laundry
a
room and
day
I
of
was like,
rejoicing that will
"Yep,
be.
when we all see Jesus, we'll sing and shout the victory." And I mean, I was
Like,
like, I was playing the tambourine on the washer lid, like it was a whole
dude,
moment.
I hadn't gone to church in like decades, and I still remember these
I know.
songs.
Well, it's indoctrination. And it works. Like, and you think about it too, how many people, and then I wanna go back to the types of music thing we were talking about, but how many people do you know as adults that if you start singing the fight song of their university, or if you start singing camp songs from where they went to summer camp, and they'll be like, "Oh my god, you went to camp," I don't know, "float a canoe too?" Like, that's and they'll start singing the same songs because music, like you said, it's a bonding experience, and that's why, like, every movement has an anthem. There was even, which I wanted to say this when you were speaking earlier, there's a country, and I'm going to get it wrong. I think it was Slovenia. I could be very wrong, so please forgive me. I don't mean any offense by getting it wrong. I just
Get
am
your
old and
Eastern
can't
European
remember.
countries in order, young lady.
I'm sorry. But they had an entire revolution, and the revolution was, like, unified and led by them singing, and the people would come out together, and in their protest, they would sing together, and by doing so, they, won their, I don't know, their fight for whatever they were fighting for. But I'm sorry, I don't know enough
You're so
about this.
prepared.
I think it was a revolution because it was called the singing revolution, so that makes sense. Anyway,
Google
the
it,
point is,
people,
right?
if you want more info.
The point is that music is extremely unifying, and that's why, you have those songs that are sort of stalwarts of the faith even. That's why when you go to a funeral, almost 9 times out of 10, you're gonna hear Amazing Grace. You're gonna hear things like that that kind of cross weave the various cultures and dynamics of Christianity. And to that point, we used to really only sing from the hymnal or from liturgically approved songs because look at the content of the songs. A lot of them had doctrine. The doctrine was embedded in there. You'd sing about the Trinity and the three are
The old
one
rugged
and
cross.
right. And you would sing about having your blood washed away and on the 3rd day I can't think of examples right now, but you get the picture. The songs had doctrine embedded, and especially if you go back to, like, foundational songs like "A Mighty Fortress Is Our God," things like that were
Jesus on the main line.
Well, that's a little bit later. But yeah, they were embedding the doctrine in your brain. And so after the hymnals, then we sort of moved into kind of like choruses, where it would be the kind of popular ones that moved around. And you'd get a few mostly from choirs. Like I remember my mother and my aunt listening to Edwin Hawkins music and kind of taking choruses out of choir songs and then using them in church and things like that. And it started to shift. I really think it started to shift around the advent of 2 things, and that was the vineyard movement. Do you remember that, Lance?
Hmm. A
And
little
then
bit.
h and then after that, because there had been, contemporary Christian music before, but it wasn't really sung in evangelical churches
Where
very
was
much.
Maranatha? Maranatha was in there somewhere, I thought.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, like the '70s to the
Yeah.
'80s bridge, I think, yeah. And then coming from the '80s to the '90s, then you got, like, the Vineyard and the Hillsong stuff.
Hmm.
Music shifted and we sort of less left behind the doctrine truths of music and moved more into, like you said, Lance, performance pieces and a lot of Jesus is my boyfriend kind of lyrics.
Or
And
7-Eleven songs, someone called them. You
yeah,
take 7 words and you sing them 11 times. Like,
yes, Lord, yes, Lord, yes, yes, Lord. Amen.
I don't
mhm.
know, man. Soundgarden, Chris Cornell did that too. So that's not all just church music.
But if you think about it, and then there was sort of a shift from, like, just performance-based to having what's called congregational singable music, and I've been in, several and I'm sure you have too, Lance, been in spaces I've been in writers' workshops, where you're having an event and you have some of the musicians there that are gonna write for the event, and some of the focus of that is let's make something that non-singers can sing, that they want so we shifted away from sort of having these, like, songs that maybe the choir sung and we all just kind of sang along with. Now we really want people engaged and, like, singing it from their gut because we want them to have an emotional I mean, it's not like that's thought out that way. The expressed version is we want them to have a moment with
Well,
God.
it's the spiritual way of saying things that science has been able to understand more in depth. Like, and we've talked about this, like the vagus nerve and the things that you get out
Mhm.
of singing. There's a whole science thing in psychology today. It talks about religious chanting increases stability and regulation of your cardiovascular tone, your all the science stuff, right? It's
Right.
physically beneficial and mentally beneficial to sing, to chant, to meditate, all of those things. And so I mean, I'm believe me, I miss the music, and I think that's why we think so favorably about it is because it did have all of these fruits and
Yes.
these effects on our lives, and we recognized it, we felt it, and we remember it.
Right. And it's visceral. Music is also visceral. I was watching something recently or listening to something, I can't remember. Either way, they were talking about that there was this group of people whose ancestors had been brought here and enslaved and they'd grown up like on the different parts of Georgia and there was this one particular lullaby that they used to sing through the generations and if you listen to it nobody could decipher it as a language like it wasn't something that was known. It was just kind of a song that they'd all sung and long story short, there was a recording of it on some kind of a story that was being broadcast, and this lady heard it, and she started crying, and she's like, "That's the traditional song from, some small remote village in Africa." And so, yeah, music is a form of our history. It's how we used to tell stories. It's how we soothe our children. It's the first sound we make is a cry in unison or in harmony with our moms sometimes.
And it's rich to me how things come full circle. And so I shared a link with you both about, and I'm very aware of this from being in an interracial marriage. And the discussions that we've had is how gospel music was utilized and helpful through the whole civil rights movement, and just understanding how the musical history plays out in my husband's culture and his memories. I mean, he's deconstructed, but it's so embedded in his culture, he will enjoy the hell out of I don't know the better word. He will enjoy gospel music till the day he dies because
Right.
there's something still cultural and historical there for him, and I think it's true for me just in different ways. I don't have obviously the minority and the discrimination roots in my childhood. But I mean, so in some ways that has redeemed some gospel music for me, because when I think about some of the old gospel songs and lyrics, I now do think of it through that lens of
That's beautiful.
civil rights, and it kind of makes more sense, and it's much more enjoyable, and actually speaks to something that's more meaningful to me at this stage.
That's really interesting, and that's a great point and a really lovely way to reframe that. Like, I think one of the things too that's so powerful, especially in our tradition of music, is like it's built to have a moment, right? Like the music, I don't want to say it's engineered, that makes it sound malevolent, and that's not my intention. But it's engineered to get you to a moment, right? Like it's not just a little ditty to like hum. It's written to where you have a verse, then you introduce this chorus, then you have the next verse, and then the chorus is going to build, and then you're going to have a vamp or a bridge, and then you're going to come back in and hit that key change, and then you're going to come back in and tag the chorus a few more times depending on the tempo of the song. Right. And then you're going to bring it down. And then the preacher's going to say something. Then you're going to come back up with it again. And you're going to hit it back with like, now you've inverted the parts. So, you know what I mean? Like it's built to move you somewhere, and it does a great job of doing that. It produces like very, very visceral moments. And I think, especially in the culture in which we live now, at least in the United States, that's one of the things that struck me when I traveled abroad is we don't have public group singing here anymore. When I was traveling and I lived overseas, it was no big deal. You'd be in a train station at 3 in the morning, and there'd be a group of people from the same country that were traveling together and found each other, and they're singing the soccer song, of their country, or in Germany at, various festivals, and always there's gonna be people singing a song or 2, and I remember being like, "Where did they all learn?" And it's really cool because 'cause you'll hear them singing a song, like, all together in English, but with their all different accents from various countries, but it's much more of a singing culture, and I know Europe is not a monoculture, I don't mean to say that, but even South America, or Latin America, or other places, there's more public singing. Where do we sing together in public here? Maybe if you're in Boston at a baseball game, right?
I'm trying to think of, I think it's Wisconsin or something. They sing before the game, and they all turn around, and there's a children's hospital right next to the college, and all the kids look out and they're singing up to them. But no,
Oh,
it doesn't happen very often here, but when you see it, it does. It gives you chill bumps. Really a big fan of football, but at the soccer games when they're all singing along, I'm really jealous of that. Like when you watch Iron Maiden in Argentina and everybody's going nuts and the crowd's going up and down, I want to be there. I mean, I don't want to be in the middle of all those people, but I want to be
right.
there. The unadulterated enthusiasm that I feel like other countries have. I don't feel like we have that here. And maybe a lot of that is so afraid to show our real emotion. I don't know. Just a
We have
theory.
a I think we have a different perspective, and I mean, again, I can only speak of my experience from my time observing again when I lived overseas. Like we have a very different perspective of joy and sort of the joy of life and being in the moment. I think, as a culture, Americans really struggle with being in the moment, and especially as we've kind of evolved with so much social media and documenting every moment, we've become so afraid of being cringe, and or being on film, being awkward or strange or exuberant or in our emotions in that way, that I think we really tend to hold it in. Maybe for a lot of people, church, like, I know I have seen grown men I'm gonna sound like I've seen grown men come up to me with tears in their eyes. No, but, I've been in church services and seen these dudes who, like, you can barely get them to crack a smile at the world's funniest joke, but yet here they are with their hands in the air and just tears streaming down their face and having these moments of emotional release that maybe they don't feel safe having in other parts of their world and their experience, because there is a lot of that. Or you'd see women that I know growing up, they were in really rough places, and bad lives and bad situations, but for a few moments, they could join in this collective singing and feel all of the uplift that's coming from that and have emotional release and just be able to let it out. And I mean, to some degree, there's a lot of validity with that.
And have a sense of hope too, you know.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Most of the people that, at least in our congregation, they didn't really have a lot going for them in life as far as riches and money, even good relationships. And so to have eternity and streets of gold to look forward to. Now, I don't know why you'd want to go to church service every day for eternity.
I was just thinking about alternatives, like, so walking away from that church tradition has left a void. Although, T, I think you've filled it really with the amount of concerts I just heard that you went to. The only thing that I'll mention that I've explored this past year and more recently is community choir.
Mm,
So it's more choral, so it's different than what I'm used to. And I don't know how people sight read, but they do.
I don't either.
That's
I
pretty
don't either.
brilliant as far as I'm concerned. So, but that's not me. But it's an open community choir, and so if you live in a significant city, I think it's possible to find some other alternatives to music. And so that's been enjoyable because it's now I get to have practices and I get to meet new people and I get to go and perform and just kind of see the whole production and just it's another outlet that's been a new way for me to express that.
That's so cool. So it's a community choir, did you say?
Hmm.
That's awesome.
It is, yeah. And I had never heard of it before, but a very famous podcast with Dak Shepard, he had his wife Kristen Bell on there, and she talked about being part of a community choir. Very random. I'd never heard that before, and so when I
Hmm,
heard her say it, I just got on Google and tried to see if there was a community choir, and sure enough, there's one that practices like 10 minutes from my house.
that's awesome.
I had a friend of mine when I lived, before I moved to the state I was in, before I moved to the state I was here in, that state where you live, Lance. If anybody who knows us hasn't figured out who we are yet, then you're stupid. But anyway,
Ooh, we could run a promotion, like some sort of promotional thing,
Like, where's
like
Waldo?
guess the
yeah,
identities.
right. I had a friend back at my job, and he was in a gay barbershop quartet.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and he loved it, man. Like, it was one of his releases. Like, he was always going, all right, cool, I'm going to go to practice tonight and stuff. But not, not only to sing, but to be around a group of like minded people.
Yeah.
It's
Community.
human nature.
Yeah.
You need it. Yeah. And
I
that's,
bet they
Have you
need a
heard of
drummer. I bet they need a drummer.
right, they probably do. Have you heard of the Sweet Adelines?
no,
I have not.
or the
Okay,
Carolina chocolate drops.
I don't know them, but the Sweet Adelines is like a national female barbershop group,
All right.
and I have been waiting. You have to be like a certain age to do it, I think, but
No.
I'm almost there, and I'm like,
Good
I
Lord, how old do you
can't
have to be?
wait. Shut up. But no, but here's the question. So, like, if we've talked about this and we've said all of the great and positive things that, you know, can come from church music or that we have associations with or we remember, then why can it be a negative thing? Like, why can it be a negative space? Do you know what I'm saying? When does it become problematic?
Well,
Do
for
you
me,
have
it was
views
the
on that?
light and the positive thing within the negative space.
That was the sweet spot.
Right. Yeah. And that's one area I don't, even to this day, I don't necessarily regret that piece of it.
For me, I have to say it was kind of like one of those, Greek tales about, like, the thing you love becomes the thing that
Kills
twists it
you.
for you, but, I remember really, really distinctly for me when, and I shared this story before, we were getting ready to have I think it was a women's conference or some type of a large outreach event, and I think we were gonna be recording that night as well for, someone associated with that was doing a live album, and we were at our sound call and we were doing our last rehearsal for that night and getting ready to go home and get dressed and everything. The pastor's comment and some of the leadership's commentary at that time was basically go home, come back, be ready for the show, which that was my one. And then they were like, and make sure to really look good. We want y'all to look sexy and hot. And that was my two. And I went home and I got dressed and, they would tell us kind of like what to wear. Like there was, certain kind of jeans and your heels had to be a certain kind of height. And then they wanted you to have like a certain color, style, theme that we
Well,
were
you're
kind of
going to
working with.
hell for wearing jeans.
I
Sorry.
know. Well, no, how times have changed when I couldn't even wear jeans to, like, ride a horse or, go out on the
Like
farm with my
bicycle?
cousin. Yes. Have you ever tried doing all those things in a skirt? Now we're okay with wearing jeans and looking sexy on the platform, so go figure. But anyway, after I was getting ready to go and I put my kids in the car, my neighbor walked out, my next door neighbor, and was like, "Ooh, girl, look at you. Where you going? Are you going out to the club?" And I was like, I'm going to church. And I'm not a prude. I don't care what you wear or what you look like. It's not about the judgment of that. It's that for me, I don't know what it was in that moment, but something crystallized.
Did you feel
And
exploited?
I felt, yes, there we go. That's exactly how I felt.
'Cause
I
if you're
did.
being used for someone else's
Yes.
gain,
Yes, and that was like the domino that pushed because the analytical part of me and the rational thinking and, kind of information loving part of me I was in this weird sort of dissociation where it was like, okay, I don't really believe that the animals lined up two by two, and I don't really believe, this, that, or the third. But I know what I feel, and that feels real, and it feels like something, so whatever, I'm just gonna put that in the category of stuff we haven't figured out yet and leave it there, and then
Out
come
of the
over here.
gaps.
Well, exactly. No, but that's the only way I could make it work, right? And then at the same time, my marriage was falling apart, I was in a very dangerous situation, and I had been doing all the things for years, praying and fasting and reading the word and giving to the Lord and tithing and making a seed of faith and like all the things. And yet we were still here in this literal living hell situation that I just didn't know how to get out of. And it was very bad. And in that moment, I'm sitting there going, the only saving grace that I thought I had, which was this thing being real. I suddenly like peeked behind the curtain and saw the wizard, and
did
I
you
saw,
watch?
not yet.
Oh my
We're
god.
saving it. We're doing it the last weekend before school starts. It's a whole thing. But
Okay,
yes,
good.
we are.
Okay, good.
But in that moment, I was like, "No, this isn't the thing." And it was like I'd known it and I'd been feeling it, but in that moment, it just snowballed for me. And I never went back on a platform and sang like that again. And this is the reason why I'm at the end of my speech is that I felt, if I was in my old Christian life, I'd say I felt convicted. And I didn't feel convicted of wearing jeans or, a lot of jewelry and makeup. I felt convicted because I felt like I've been complicit in manipulating people's emotions. Because all of a sudden, thinking back to songwriting sessions or even planning the service and planning it to have a build, or, when I was leading, pulling certain songs that I knew would push whatever the emotional trigger point that had really been flexed for that particular sermon, I could go in my brain and pick the right song that was gonna really, we've been talking about abandonment. I'm gonna pick this song right there that's gonna talk about the never ending, never failing love of God the Father who's gonna wrap me in
It's
his
like you're
arms.
composing a movie.
Yes. Yes, that and all of a sudden I saw it and I was like, "Wait a minute. What if that's not been the Holy Spirit leading that? What if that's just people doing this because as they told me, they want to attract people in and get them to have a moment and then reach out and plug them into the community? And what if that's all being done through manipulation and
Well,
money
the
and
apologist would say
deceit?"
that the Holy Spirit was guiding you to pick those songs,
And that's the point,
Well,
and when I
I
looked at it and I thought fell apart for me. I don't know.
get the knee jerk on manipulation, but where music's concerned, I don't think I look back with quite such a judgment of it. Like, yes, music is emotive. Yes, it builds. Yes, I don't know. For me, I went for that. I feel like people go for that. They enjoy the concert. Like, I enjoy singing "Fix You" at a Coldplay concert.
Right.
That has a very similar build, like to what I'm used to, and I don't know. I didn't have to be at church, so I don't feel quite like I'm feeling that negative about even the idea about choosing certain music to bring forth emotion from a crowd. I feel like
I have
that's
no
yeah. Go
I
ahead.
have no problem with it, like, in my regular life. I
Mhm.
think where it was for me is the moment of realization. I guess I shouldn't really say a problem with it in that setting. It's just that I think I was just ready to see. Do you know what I mean? But,
Yeah.
like, when I saw it happen, I just realized I can speak for myself. I've been part of this thing of trying to manipulate it this is the difference. Manipulating a crowd through music, every musician does that. Every good song does that. That's humanity and storytelling and everything else. And
Right.
we respond to those, chord changes and everything. That's great. What it was for me is framing that through the lens of telling people that this was them touching God. That's what it was for me,
Yeah.
where I'm like, I don't know. I just felt shocked by how it felt calculated. It felt transactional.
Mhm.
And I think for me, that's where it became kind of a pain point because I'm just now at a point where I can listen to some of those songs. The other day, I was singing, what is that, Whitney Houston from The Preacher's Wife? I Love the Lord. That I've always loved to sing that song because of the way it just opens up and it lifts and it just moves you. And now I can sing the song for the joy of singing the song. But for a long time, when I would sing the song after I deconstructed, I would remember moments that in hindsight felt like being manipulative to some degree. I don't know.
Mhm.
It's hard to
I
explain.
don't know if a lot of churches do that on purpose. I think it's kind of that's the way it's been, and they kind of follow that same pattern because it gets results. But I don't know that they necessarily plan it out like that. It just kind of happens like that.
They do plan it out though, because again, at least in the churches that
Or
I've
maybe
been in
not
that are
plan it out's
larger.
not a good word. I mean, not plan out the songs, but I don't think in their head they're thinking it's manipulation. Does that make sense? They're just
No, I
trying to get,
totally agree,
you
totally
know,
agree. Engagement. They're looking for
right,
engagement and people
engagement.
to sing and have feelings, but to an extent, I guess it's like, and you framed it in an earlier statement, T, and maybe it's just me tonight, maybe it's just how I'm thinking about it. But like when the preacher preaches a very specific kind of sermon, because there's different categories of sermon, right? And when he really preaches one that pulls those emotional longing feelings, and then you choose music to kind of really reinforce that message fully with the intent for other people to come forward to the altar call and like have this moment and become part of this thing. I don't know. It's I don't know. I
Well,
feel weird
I
about
don't
it.
think we'll ever know because I think what you're talking about is kinda intent, and we never know other people's
Yeah,
intent
that's true.
necessarily because, I mean, choosing music sometimes you have to read the room.
Yeah.
That's what makes good musicians and yes, performers. So to me, I still put it under the category of performer, I think. But to your point, as far as intent, I've seen people use the stage, use these roles because they're kind of sought after, being seen on a regular basis. They've used that as control tactics, in
Mm,
order to control people. And certainly in our background in Pentecostalism, how you dress. Oh, you cut your hair, you can't be on the platform. Flash forward a couple of decades. Oh, you're gay, you can't sing. So we'll
right.
allow you to play an instrument, but you can't have a microphone if you're gay. Like that was the
Yes.
rule of
We
the
need you
church
to
that I
step
went to.
down.
Right.
We're
So
gonna have to ask you to
so
step
then there's
down.
all these things around it that are icky. But I mean, you can, at least in my mind, I can kind of boil down the music part to something that's a bit more pure for me. But I agree, like how the rapping that it was in
That's a good way
was
to praise it.
just it kind of made it a little bit icky in some ways. I think for you, especially the exploitation part, that makes total sense to
Yeah.
me. Something
Yeah.
I didn't feel like I necessarily had to experience as a
No.
guy.
There was a lot of that. There was a lot of that, and that's the thing too is, a lot of times you'd have really great singers, and I'm talking more not from the small church perspective, I'm talking more like in larger,
Hmm.
verging on mega church kind of things. There's definitely a component to where your looks are a factor as
Hmm.
to who gets put on the praise team, and even to the extent of, keep their mic low, but keep the camera on them when it pans
It's
because
just
they
like
look
the
good on
secular world.
but that's what it is. That's the sentence that I was looking for. When I saw that the music that I was doing in church was being it felt very much like I was at a show and we were going on for the encore to pump the audience and we wanted to make sure that the good-looking actor was here so the camera could pan. It felt like show business instead of church business. That's what it was. Yes. There. All of that to say. But there is a factor of that.
So the music was being honest.
True.
Music
It's a
is honest.
show.
People fuck it up. That's the problem.
Well, music is the only pure language, in my opinion, that we all speak universally. That felt like such a loss, but yeah, you're right. It's because it felt like show business, and there was a lot of control, and there was a lot of looksism, and there was a lot of politics as to who's on the worship team, you know?
Mhm.
And they're in many churches, like, especially, like I said, larger churches, and once you get into churches recording CDs and, writing songs and doing things like that, there's almost like this quasi sense of celebrity that comes with that,
Yep.
and people kinda battle for positioning, like, it becomes very odd. Did you experience those things?
Did. I mean, how often do you sing on Sundays, when you had a worship team that rotates, right? For example,
Right.
those types of things. But I mean, I'm not a great singer, but I can blend and I can harmonize. So I was
You're a
always
great singer.
quite happy about it. I was a little bit more on the other side. Like I grew up in a church that did kind of open up and let anybody sing, and that was kind of painful sometimes.
You don't remember our song leader?
What?
Which
Brother
Yeah,
H?
yeah, 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 yeah. I have to think really
Yeah.
He
hard to go back that far in my head, actually. I have to
No,
go back
we'll tell
pretty
you
far.
after.
But
Yeah, no, I remember him.
so and then as I got older and got a little bit more involved in our little tiny church, I was okay, like, let's have those that have the talent sing more,
Yeah.
so, I mean, I don't remember making it about looks necessarily, but if I
No,
did,
in a
that
small
was the
church,
unconscionable bias of it.
you're just so grateful because we grew up in a small church. In a small church, you're just so grateful when somebody comes along who can actually sing and stay on their part and not
Mhm.
migrate. You don't care what
just
they look
clap to the
like,
beat
Right.
correctly, Jesus.
right? It's the
So,
2
and then
and the
you get to
4
and then you
guys.
get to the bigger churches and there's just more competition. Like you have one Sunday service and you have thousands of people, then it's, they're gonna go for those that have the most talent. That kinda makes sense to me. But
No, for sure. So I have one more question.
mhm,
What do you do? Was it ever conflicting for you, maybe earlier in your deconstruction or now or whatever, when you would listen specifically to gospel music or, church music, and you would start to feel emotions? Was that ever conflated with you with like, "Oh, is this the Holy Spirit trying to nudge me?" Or you know what I mean? Did it ever make you
when did I
doubt your
are you saying, like, at the point where I was deconstructing, did I ever start to doubt what I was feeling?
at the point where you were deconstructing, did you ever second guess your deconstruction because of emotions that you felt if you listened to church
Oh.
music? Does that
I
make
second
sense?
guess myself every day on that. Like I literally, I remember almost every day. Please don't let me be deceived. Please don't. Like I
Right.
was second guessing myself along the way, and not just the feelings that I had with singing, making me worry about it, but the fact that I've spoken in tongues and the things that I don't feel like I faked it. So
Right.
I think other things about it. The things that I know about healings and just all the stories and from people that I don't feel like lied about it. So for me, all of those things cause me to second guess myself every step of the way. And I don't do anything quickly. I don't have that personality. I'm going to slowly overturn every possible rock that I can find or think of before I feel like I'm going to take the next step and feel secure.
Mhm. That makes sense.
Just like when you get out of a relationship, you hear music that you listen to together, it brings back a memory. Same thing with church and music.
Hmm.
Music brings back memories just like smells. So that's why that's so powerful too. I think of the songs we've been talking about in my head, and I can picture in church up there playing the drums and seeing you guys up there singing. It just brings a flood of memories back. And if they're good memories,
Hmm.
have that idea. If they're bad memories, then you associate it with the bad ideas. And mine are mostly associated with the bad ideas because, like I've mentioned before, usually when it was altar call and all that, something terrible had just been said by my dad about how we're all going to die and Jesus is going to torture us forever. And yeah, so it was really hard for me to get over that. And that's why even now, I can't listen to it. I can't hear it. I don't want to. It makes me feel bad.
Yeah. And I don't like to listen to worship music at this point. I will
Mm-mm.
listen to gospel music now,
Same.
but
Yeah.
I don't care for going back to the worship music.
Yeah. No, I can't listen to that anymore. It makes me feel icky. To put a real scientific spin on it, it makes me feel icky. Sometimes I will find myself singing hymns. I don't know, just because probably because a good 4/4 rhythm, but they're all written in 4/4. Like it
Yeah.
just fits
Yeah.
activities if you were doing stuff around the house and it comes to the top of mind. But yeah, I can listen to a little bit of gospel music. For a while there, it really did make me second guess myself too. I remember I don't know what was happening, but I was scrolling through something on social media and came across a clip of Take Me to the King, and I just lost it. And for a minute there, I was like, what is this? What's going on? And then I remembered that was the song that I was listening to on repeat the night before my first husband passed away. And so, like T said, there is a visceral memory there.
Mhm.
And, the music itself just does evoke emotions. But the other day I was listening to some kind of honoring of singers or whatever, and they were honoring Patti LaBelle, and Fantasia Barrino got up to sing. And I'm telling you, she wasn't singing anything about God, but I felt church right there. And it's just the power of the vocals and the power of the music. And we're meant to feel that. We're meant to connect to that.
I got to see Jennifer Hudson,
Oh,
and she came in at the beginning of the concert from the back of the auditorium, just singing a cappella, the beginning, "How great thou art." And the first words out of her mouth, and it was like someone just turned on little like faucets, and I could not stop crying like from the get go.
right.
But that was some powerful singing.
Yeah. Her voice can take me there too. And Kelly Clarkson, like
Hmm.
there's something in when she sings, it's a different type of music and a different type of singing, but there's something in her voice, probably because she's from the same, nearby the same area where we were all from. But,
They're
you know,
belters. We love our
yeah.
belters.
And when you grow up Pentecostal, that's just, come on,
Hmm.
it's in your DNA.
He
It's just
belt
part
them,
of it
yes.
for the sake of everybody else's ears around you, whether they like it or not, right? It's
For
all
me,
good.
it's "Stay" by Rihanna. That song, I
Yeah.
love that song. I'll be in the car, and if you ever see me driving down the road singing, I'm probably singing that song.
It's Maroon
Horribly,
5.
but I'm doing it. Oh
Tell
yeah,
the truth.
"Sugar." That's a great song. If
I
you ever
love
see that
sugar.
video, man, I will.
Were they
That
going to weddings?
tears me up. Yeah, dude. I don't know why. It just.
It's
I'll
true,
sit
I've
there and
seen
cry
it.
like a baby. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I love that
That
song.
song makes me want to drive down the West Coast in like a convertible with that song.
Yeah.
That's the feeling I get every time I hear that song.
I think because in that video you just see the love those families have for each other,
Mhm.
Aw,
and it just tears me up, man. It's just awesome.
that's
I don't know if
funny.
it's fake or what, but whoever did it, that's a freaking
Oh,
awesome
I hope
video.
it's not fake.
And
I
you know
thought it was
what? I
real.
don't care what people think. I love it. Leave me alone.
Go for it. Have your
You
feelings
own
for
that
Maroon
shit.
5. I love it. You know what song? Gosh, what was it? Hang on. Don't go away. I have to think of what it is. Dadgummit. Okay, got it. I'm back. You know what song does that too for me is and it's not because it's so positive and uplifting. It's the harmony. It's absolutely the harmony. Is Die with a Smile, Bruno Mars and Lady Gaga. Like when I hear that song, I sing the third part. I go in and tag
Mhm.
the third part of the harmony with them. And for that moment, that feeling, like right there when it hits those big notes and I can add that little piece of harmony, that's the feeling for me. Like that's, you feel it right in your chest. And it's a beautiful, beautiful thing.
My daughter and I were did a little mini road trip to go get school supplies and Mexican food. And on the way, I told her, you have to take out your earphones and actually hang out with me for a while. I know I'm terrible, but let's hang out. And so we were just listening to music, and I'm, like on Spotify, listen to whatever you want to. And she put on like Stone Temple Pilots. And I'm like, you
Whoa.
listen to this? And she's like, yeah. And she put on some other music. And then I'm like, hey, how about this? And so I put on Tool for her. And she was like, oh, yeah, I like that. And we just totally bonded over music. She was playing songs for me, I was playing songs for her. And it's funny, she's totally different from my son. He loves rap, that's all he listens to. I took him to see Travis Scott, and I'm watching the baseball game on my phone while he's watching the concert. I'm like, oh, this is not my thing, man. But my daughter and I really bonded over that, and how you can bond over music. It's her and I. She's a teenage girl. She doesn't want to talk to me. I'm stupid. She doesn't want to hang out to me. with me. But that's something we could really bond, and we started, just having a conversation about music. And I think I've mentioned this before. It's something we missed with our parents is that, well, I mean, at least I did, because it was cringe to me. That's the only word I have
Yeah.
to describe it. Just the whole gospel music worship thing was cringe to me. And so I didn't have that bond really of talking to my parents about music that I liked. And it was so, I can't think of the word, but you couldn't talk about other music. You couldn't listen to rock and roll, anything. You couldn't just get into stuff. You couldn't like stuff. Your world was so narrow. You couldn't find anything new in the world because it was of the world.
Yeah.
And it's such a fucking sad way to live, man. It's like people, and if you this is you, I'm sorry, but it's like people who live the same place their whole life or don't travel, like get out and see the world. There's so much to see. When I went to Germany that time, it just totally changed my perspective on the world, different countries. I always, was the America patriotism, America's number one. And then you go to another country and you realize there's other people out there and they have some really good ideas, and America's not the be all end all. And then that's why, again, they don't want you to leave a church and go outside of it, because you realize there's other things out there. There's beautiful things. And it's really sad that you waste your one life believing in this mythology. That basically, if you break it down to the basic forms, you believe in superstition and magic. That's it. Getting back to what you were saying before, you have this Bible that they're going on, and they're going off of the way these people thought 2,000 years ago. People that couldn't even read and write, that this is the way they thought about morals and what you should do. And if you want your sheep to be born spotted, you should have them have sex in front of this poplar tree. Just, stuff that just doesn't make sense. It's just mythology. And you can't decipher that maybe you need to change some of the things that they thought, like homosexuality and slavery and all this. You don't think that that should change with the culture and the times, but you can let women start wearing jeans and start wearing makeup and all that because the culture and the times have changed. Does
Hmm.
that make any sense at all? Like
Hmm.
the thought process you have to go through to think that way is just effed up, man. You know what I mean? Like times can change, so we can do this now. We can go to movies now. We can do all this, but we can't say that the things in the Bible that times have changed and that's the way they thought back then and they thought wrong because they didn't know all the stuff we know now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because those things don't affect them.
Well,
That's
and they're real
I'm
quick to
I'm gonna
like
change my
use
mind on the things that
medicine.
affect me, but not the ones that
Right.
Yeah.
affect you.
But remember, and this has been a foundational thing that's helped me, is realizing truth for many people who like to declare that truth is absolute, that's not how they live their life. Truth becomes whatever serves the narrative at the moment, right? And I find that to be very helpful to think through. And, like you were saying, it was interesting in our early childhood, it was very much like that. No other music except for the 8 tracks and, things that we had like
And
that.
country music.
I was gonna say, but country music. One of the things that's been really interesting to me is one of the places that our dad and I'd say all three of us at one point in time, but one of the places our dad and I bonded over is old country music, Merle Haggard and Willie Nelson. And it'd be very, very common for my dad or I to, just share a song, share a YouTube link or Spotify link for a song and not really have conversation, just like seven Spanish angels. Yep. And it's kind of like that sort of shared culture there. And with our mom, a huge place of how I bonded with our mom was by doing music together. We had a piano in our home, and very, very often, every time I'd go by to visit, if I was even with my children or whatever, we'd sit around the piano and she and I would sing something. She'd be like, honey, come sing this with me. You take the lead on this part and I'll come in on this part. Do you remember that song that went like this? And like that was such a thing that I shared with them. And the last time my mother tried to get me to sing with her, and it was a very problematic lyric kind of song. I wanted to sing with her because I wanted to share that with her again. I just couldn't get there. I couldn't get there with the words for that. And like that's been the thing for me, is recognizing, like, holding on to the music, holding on to the value of it, being able to separate, the supernatural from just the very natural parts of humanity that we feel and respond to with music. and
Hmm.
kind of making peace with all that. It's been a big part because going back to what you said at the beginning, Lance, the music for me was really the thing.
Hmm.
That was the thing that I could overlook some of the other things and I could really detach from some of the questioning, and I could sit through sermons that felt very misogynistic or felt very exclusionary or felt very honestly many times against the premise of what had been laid out as Christianity, because
Hmm.
they seem very transactional when you start getting into prosperity gospel and whatever. And like I could kind of make my peace with that, because when the music happens,
Hmm.
right, and you feel it, then that's the reality. But
Yeah.
it quit working.
Yeah. So we
So
need new tools. We need new communities, new venues,
new
new expressions.
communities, yeah, and replacing that, right? Like they say that, the best way to modify your behavior is by replacing one thing with another. And I think that's something that we have to all be mindful of in the process of deconstruction, is we have lost something that is primordially important to humans, right? Having a communal experience, especially a communal musical experience. So be mindful of that. Be gentle of yourself with that. Try to build in spaces like community choirs or barbershop quartets or going to
Yeah.
concerts or whatever it may be. Make space for yourself to sing and find music maybe that you like to sing now so you can still have some of that joy of
Go to
music.
karaoke.
Ooh,
Karaoke is a great place. Yeah.
I'm too
Get really
shy.
drunk and go to karaoke.
That's better.
Not too drunk.
I get
I'm
way
too
too in my
shy.
head for karaoke and make everything sound like a church song. So
Every
That's so
time
funny.
I sing, I was drunk the day my
The day my
mama
mom got out
got
of
out of
prison.
prison.
And you're always good for a George Strait too, here and there.
I don't know. I don't know. My voice will crack on me. I'll stick with the drums.
Just stick with the drums. I keep saying we should form a band. Mama tried and the Rebel Outlaws. I don't know. Why not?
The
Why
heathens.
not? But any way you put it, you have to admit, and you have to not admit, but you have to come to terms with the fact that music was a very much important part of our tradition. If that's something that we can walk away from and have good memories and positive associations with, and all the better. Because at the end of the day, you know, it's part of us.
agreed. So yeah, if you value music, and certainly I think all of us do, you just have to find new ways to engage in it, and that takes creativity as well as being part of communities. It's a relearning experience when you've had kind of church be the end all be all socially and connect to all these things in us that we value, that we care about, that speak life, because they're all kind of captured in that one community. So finding alternatives to that is a challenge.
Yeah, and if you take joy in listening to that music still, do it.
For
Sing
sure.
it. Sing all the parts, play the tambourine on the washing machine, whatever you got to do. Enjoy it. Enjoy the music. Don't let the fact that you deconstructed, I guess would be my tip
Mhm.
to all of us, and myself included. Don't let the fact that you've deconstructed rob you of the joy of the music and the fun of the singing it and memories that it holds, the positive memories.
Yeah, yeah, totally.
Cool.
What do you think, T?
I don't know. I think I'm done. You done?
Think that's it. So if you want, find our playlist. Let us know what music that you love. What are your thoughts about leaving church music? And I got a baby crying.
Oh,
Yeah. Any new bands that you guys know of? Throw them out there. I always want new music.
Yep, and we'll talk to you soon.
that's good. Good night.
TTFN.